A conversation between Claude Brown, author of the recently published autobiography Manchild in the Promised Land, and Norman Podhoretz, editor of Commentary magazine.
Well, Claude, you know, the first time I read your book, Manchild in the Promised Land, and I thought then that it was just about the most extraordinary thing I'd ever read about growing up, or as you call it in the book, coming up in Harlem. And since then, since its publication, I understand that Jimmy Baldwin sent a telegram from Turkey saying that he thought it was the only major American autobiography since Richard Wright's Black Boy. This is an extraordinary, remarkable book that breaks new ground in candor and straightness. What you get, and I think this is one of the things that will both shock and delight people, what a great time you had coming up in Harlem. You had a ball playing hooky, stealing, even going to Wiltwyck and Warwick.
Yeah, my childhood delinquent career was a real ball. You know, it was an exciting adventure to me. I was a delinquent not because I was forced to. I was a delinquent because I wanted to be one.
Yeah.
You know, all of these things.
Was your idea of being good, as you say in the book somewhere? They can tell you to be good, and this is the way you knew how to be good, was to be good at stealing.
I was enjoying life as I came, and many of the people I came up with were enjoying life also. They were enjoying taking drugs. They were enjoying shooting each other. They were enjoying the gang fights. We all enjoyed it. It was a ball. It gave us a sort of social status. This was meaningful to us in life, and it was perhaps the most meaningful experience available to us at the time. But many of the other guys with whom I came up weren't able to perceive it was time to stop playing here and now. You know, if I'd gone to Coxsackie, I would have had a criminal record which would have presented an obstacle in the way of my advancement, economic and social advancement for the rest of my life.
People like Kenneth Clark and others are repeatedly making the point. You see that a 16-year-old kid in Harlem doesn't have that feeling because he's got no sense of possibility. All the avenues are shut off.
You know,
how come you didn't feel that way? Or maybe they're wrong. Is it untrue?
They are. Kenneth Clark and others. This is one of the reasons why the Harlem community has never really, or has never been validly analyzed, because the people who make all the comments and who become the authorities and experts on Harlem have never lived here.
I think Clark did, didn't he?
No, he might have lived in Lenox Terrace, and that's not Harlem.
Yeah, I see what you mean. But is it not true, nevertheless, that a lot of, say right now, we go out on these streets and there's 16-year-old kids walking around, do they have any feeling that there are chances for them, that they can make it big in the world?
Well, I didn't have any feeling that there were chances for me, but I knew it was out there somewhere, and I had to get it.
You had to get it, you yourself, by yourself.
That's right.
Recently, a report on the Negro family was made as the so-called Moynihan report. It hasn't been made public yet, and one of the things it stresses is the very high rate of illegitimacy in Harlem. I don't know, something like 44% of all births last year. And it talks about the difficulty of kids growing up with an absent father, which of course was not your case. Do you feel that this is a really crucial problem? I mean, from the way you look at it, say from the way you look at it as a Harlem kid.
Go here and study the communities themselves. Don't sit around and give something to some psychologist who knows less about it than they do, actually. He's been sleeping in a book all of his life. They're going to give it to him and say, yeah, tell me about those Negroes. And all he gets is a psychological report that says nothing.
Well, you still, though, haven't answered my question, the one I started with. Which is, do you think that this business of illegitimacy, of large numbers of illegitimate kids
is no big problem, really.
Why not?
Why should the Negroes who've been so deprived in this country for so long worry about the power structures disturbance over their high rate of illegitimacy?
Nobody is suggesting that they ought to worry about the power structures disturbance. The question is whether this is a factor.
That's not the problem. It's merely a symptom of the overall problem. Illegitimacy, drug addiction. Why doesn't anybody say anything about drug addiction?
Yeah, let's talk about drugs. In the book, drugs are the villain in your book. You say when about 1955 it swept Harlem like a plague, and You, thank God, escaped from it. Why do you think drugs took over in the way they did all of a sudden?
You see, my generation was in almost total rebellion. They were rebelling against the previous generation, our parents. We were rebelling against the power structure. We were rebelling against the adult world. We were rebelling against almost everything. Drugs came at a time when it gave some substance to our rebellion. If we wanted to say that we were different from our parents who had come from the South and who were happy to work in Goldberg's house and scrub his floors, to work downtown for $40 and $50 a week and think they're doing good. We used drugs, we got high off heroin, we nodded, but we were cool. We didn't do like our parents had been doing since the plantation days, getting drunk on Saturday night and going around cutting each other up, hitting each other in the head with axes and meat cleavers and shooting each other. All we did, we got high and we nodded and we became lost in our own selves.
Happy birthday. My high school principal, Mr. Harvey, suggested that I read Manchild in the Promised Land after I graduated. This book I wish I read before I graduated, because after I graduated I got into trouble, ended up in jail, ended up going to Howard R. Young Correctional Facility, not Howard University. Got locked up. Howard R. Young, commonly called Gander Hill in Wilmington, Delaware. It's not a place where you want to be. The decisions that people make to carry on, do what it is that puts them in prison, those decisions, the choices that we make to do the wrong thing when we're young, especially, we need to learn how to do the right thing before it's too late. In Manchild in the Promised Land, Claude Brown knew when it was going to be too late. He decided to change his life and he ended up going to Howard University. He left that life in Harlem. He didn't end up in adult prison. He didn't end up with convictions that he could never live away or live down, a felony that stays with you for the rest of your life as an adult. That didn't happen to Claude Brown because he believed there was better for him, and he recognized the greatness within himself, and he wouldn't allow it to be stripped from him or his family. I thank God for this book, Manchild in the Promised Land. I wish I had a copy of it right now that I could show you. Matter of fact, I'm going to put it on the screen. Manchild in the Promised Land by Claude Brown. Rest in peace to him.